Open source software is everywhere. There are 128 million open source projects on GitHub. 96% of servers in the world run on Linux, and so do 85% of all smartphones, as Android is based on a Linux kernel. So many of our everyday products or applications use open source technologies, and it might offer even more than you think. But first, let's get back to a definition. Open source is source code that is made freely available for possible modification and redistribution. The open source model encourages open collaboration. A main principle of open source software development is peer production, with source code, blueprints, and documentation freely available to the public. Just by definition, open source seems quite ideal, so we made an hypothesis. Open source software is generally more sustainable than closed source software. We will try to demonstrate that through a synthesis of our research. Firstly, we'll explain a bit more how open source software is by definition more respectful of the environment and the people, and how it also allows for coherent and efficient business models. Then we will look at some example and concrete case studies to show you that some open source products are already very useful to you, and that they could be even more present, allowing you to reduce your environmental impacts. To begin with, by definition, open source seems to be a pretty sustainable model. It allows for free code and free software to be made available to everyone. The social pillar of sustainable development is already present. Concerning the economic pillar, many coherent and successful business models are based on open source technology and on creating products with open source software. We could think of companies like Red Hat, GitHub, or Oracle. Finally, for the environmental dimension, many open source technologies are more sustainable than closed alternatives. Some hardware may last longer with open source software. Open source software sometimes consumes less energy than closed source counterparts. And finally, by being often free, some money transfers are avoided and it discourages overconsumption, or at least it does not support it as much as other models. But let's get on to some case studies and concrete examples. Of course, we cannot talk about open source software without talking about Linux. The world's largest open source project and the most famous open operating system can be seen as better than Windows and macOS on many points. It's very stable, it's light, powerful, diverse, and even maybe more sustainable. It is available to all, and it might be a real help in diminishing the environmental impacts of computers by increasing their lifespan. If you keep a computer longer, you save a lot of carbon emissions and precious resources. So many precious metals are extracted in poor countries by workers with very bad working conditions, and sometimes even by children, in order to make your computers and laptops. These metals might also be mined from the ocean floor, destroying corals and precious ecosystems. In addition to this mining for resources, manufacturing a computer creates a lot of carbon emissions, much more than its common use afterwards. Around 80% of all the carbon emitted by a computer during its lifespan is emitted during its manufacture, and most of the rest during its discarding, as computers are rarely properly recycled. The energy consumed when it is actually in use is all in all quite negligible. So the best way to reduce these emissions and the consumption of resources is to extend your computer's lifespan so that you don't buy a new one. And open source solutions can play a big role in that. A good way to extend the lifespan of an old Windows computer when it starts to run badly might be to switch it to Linux. It might be especially helpful with Windows 8 being obsolete and Windows 10 soon to be in 2024. For example, even a computer made for Windows XP will run very well with the latest Debian version. It allows you to have some of the most recent applications and softwares without the need to change your whole computer. Now, you might already use quite a lot of open source technologies without even knowing about them. For example, in the world of web browsers, you have a lot of choice, and Firefox by Mozilla is a pretty famous open source solution. It is a pretty good alternative to Chrome by Google, and it is often considered better in terms of privacy. Another concrete example might be LibreOffice, a free and open source office productivity software suite. It could be considered better and more sustainable than its closed-source alternatives like Microsoft Office. Unlike Microsoft Office, LibreOffice is free. It offers quality software compatible with almost every computer, it avoids money transfers, and it is available to all. Other everyday software that you might not realize are open source include VLC, the famous video media player, or GIMP, an open and efficient graphic editor to retouch or edit images. Open source software already might be more present in your life than you think, so why not give it even a bit more room? Some new open projects are really aiming at creating new business models which respect the environment and human beings. For example, there are several sustainable smartphone projects that have seen light in recent years. They put a priority on repairability and a respectful supply chain to produce phones with longer lifespans and lesser environmental and social impacts. A concrete example might be Fairphone. These high-quality and ethical smartphones are entirely based on open-source technologies. They are very easily repairable at home without spending too much, and their prices are in a totally normal range. Now there are probably many new inspiring open projects to come. If you are even a little bit convinced, don't hesitate to promote open source technology amongst your peers, your family or your friends, or even in your future companies. Don't hesitate to take part in open collaboration communities. They often hold precious experience and knowledge exchanges. Of course, we cannot say that open source software and other open technologies are the perfect solutions to our world's problems. But they might be a part of these solutions, and they might contribute to the creation of a more sustainable IT world. Thank you for watching!